Aloha. When I was 21 years old, I moved to Los Angeles where I had a full-time teaching job, 6th and 8th grade math and science at 32nd USC Magnet School. Now imagine me at 21 years old, just coming out of college, and I was walking into my school with a very, very mellow attitude. I had Birkenstocks on and a plaid shirt, clean cut, and I was totally ready to change the world. And I was absolutely torn apart by the inner city kids. I had no chance with them. I poured my heart into the lessons, but I had no chance. And after about a month and a half or so, it was this particular math class, my period 3 math class. There was this group of 3 girls, very big, loud, powerful girls, would not give me the time of day and were speaking very, very loud during my lesson, and I was tired of it. So I'm writing on the blackboard, and I threw my pen down and I look at them and I said, "Who do you think I am? Do you think I'm just some kind of rich white boy from Connecticut? I mean, really, look at me. I'm a human being. I'm a person. You know, I stayed up till 9 o'clock last night preparing this lesson for you. Not for me. I prepared it for you, so you can learn, so you can thrive. Not for me. Please treat me like a human being." And for the next hour and 15 minutes, I laid into them my true life story of who I was, what I went through, the trials and tribulations that I went through, the pains and hardship that I went through to get to the point that I was at in this moment. Able to share my experience with them, my wisdom, anything that I gained along the way. I hadn't just cruised into the classroom and was just feeding them a bunch of nonsense. I was truly a human being sharing my heart and my soul. And for the next hour and 15 minutes, you could hear a pin drop in that classroom. You could hear anything, because those kids were listening, wide-eyed. Wow, Mr. D did what? Did you hear that? Oh, snap! And for the rest of that day, I dropped all my lessons plans and I told my story to all of my students. And I kid you not, for the next few days, there was a buzz going around the school. "Did you hear, man, Mr. D, he is a real man. He's a person. Did you hear that stuff he'd been through? Oh my God." I had teachers coming up to me for the next 3 days saying, "Mr. D, why are these kids in my classroom talking about, man, I'm never gonna drink alcohol. Did you hear what Mr. D went through? I don't want to go through that. I ain't gonna smoke pot. Do you hear what Mr. D, man, I'm not gonna be in those bad situations. Mr. D, what did you do? What did you say to these kids?" Well, from that day on, I went from the outsider, the kids were against me, to all of a sudden it was no longer me and them. All of a sudden it was us. My classroom had a totally different energy. We were working together. And it was a truly harmonious thing. I began to experiment with certain things like playing classical music in the class, or bringing things to give them more freedom and more responsibility as the trust began to grow between the two of us, or all of us. Now, at the end of the school year, one of my students, Nick, came up to me at the graduation. He said, "You know, Mr. D, you had a really good year this year, but I'll tell you what, that first month, we wanted to get rid of you. We didn't want you here. We didn't like you. But the moment you told us that story, things changed. You became a real person to us. You became a human being. And we respected you. And we wanted to perform for you and for us. Man, we looked out for you. We had your back." The second year, things changed a little bit. The first day, I began the year with my story. I made a PowerPoint and everything. I showed her up on the wall and I said, "These are the pictures. This is what happened. This is who I am. This is the reality. This is the truth. This is where I've been." And all of my kids, of course, their jaws dropped to the ground. And they listened. And from that day on, I had all of my kids with me, together, on the bandwagon. And the second year, I went through my yoga teacher training, my Kundalini yoga teacher training. I wanted to bring a new sense of Zen, of awareness, of love and compassion to my classroom. So I asked Gurmukh, my teacher, "Gurmukh, can I please have a meditation to share with my kids?" And she said, "Yes, try this one." As you notice, I'm clapping both hands, which I'm activating both sides of my brain. I'm getting into rhythm with the class. It's something fun, musical that you can move to. And right when that kid's entered in my class, this is how we began the class. I would sit on the table and I would do this. And I'd usually play a mantra, and I found a song that they liked, and it went like this. Ek Onkar Satnam Karta Purik Nirbo Nirvar. And every day we would sing this mantra together, and I would play different mantras, different beautiful songs during the classroom. I would change up the meditations, teach them how and why it was beautiful to embrace their heart. Rather than being frustrated during a test, you can take your 5 fingers, you can put your 5 fingers together, focus on the tip of your nose, activate your brain, and breathe. Many times during the week when I'd have a test, I had many kids writing frustrating, and getting all frustrated, and then they'd get the answer and they'd write it down. And this was the way I was able to create this peaceful environment in my classroom. I used to burn sage and incense in my class, and the kids would come in the beginning of the day and say, "Mr. D, you smoking pot in here? What's going on, man?" And they'd say, "Wow, it just feels so good. It feels nice. It feels zen." And I would have kids that would wanted to come to my class. They would leave their other classes and they would come to my class. With this level of trust built, I went from this crazy hippie teacher who was carrying green juice with him everywhere to all of a sudden I was a respected, listened to teacher with lines of kids lining up with Dixie cups asking me to try the green juice I was drinking, and after they tried, say, "Mr. D, I can feel the power, yeah." One of my favorite meditations that I taught the students was this. It goes, "I am happy, I am good. I am happy, I am good. Satnam, Satnam, Satnam Ji. Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru Ji." Now again, imagine that I'm standing in front of a bunch of inner city Los Angeles kids singing this song to a bunch of 8th graders, teenagers. You know, they're looking at me like I was crazy, but they tried it, And they looked at each other. I would say, "All right, ready, let's do it. I am happy." Now go look at your neighbor and whisper, "I am happy, I am good." And all my kids just roared laughing, you know, everyone's full of joy. And for the next week, I would peek my head out of my classroom and I'd see kids on the playground and on the blacktop going to other kids in other classes going, "I am happy, I am good." And I had teachers coming up to me all week saying, "Mr. D, what is going on here? Why are these kids just so happy? Why is everyone so happy?" You know, and I would tell the kids, you know, you can use these tricks, you can use these meditations when you go home, when your mom and your dad are angry at you or something's not flowing. You say, "But Mom, I am happy, I am good." And it worked. You know, they understood, but it backfired on me a few times, I'll be honest. Well, maybe worked for me. I had this one student, Omar, who never would do his homework. And I met with his mom and his brother and him many times, and Omar fell into the pattern of doing his homework. One day, man, he just didn't do his homework, and I said, "Omar, come on, man, we had this agreement." And he said, "Yeah, but Mr. D, I am happy, I am good." I lost it. I totally fell on the ground laughing hysterically. And I said, "Omar, you got it, man. You got it. You are happy." I bowed to that happiness. And I had students beginning to show more interest in a different way of lifestyle. Even though, for example, one of my students failed both my math and science class, he still made the effort to find himself. He would come into my class during snack time or during lunch, and he'd get in a full lotus position and he'd meditate on my desks, and I'd teach him different mudras and different mantras. And although I tried my best to help him academically, he was not interested in that, and I watched instead his spirit begin to flourish and really begin to unfold. And I had this really unique relationship with a few of my students through a different avenue, a more spiritual avenue, even though we were in a public school. And because the academic results were very great, the math program was growing. We started an honors program. We were outscoring all the other schools in our local district. Our scores were going up 500% on the state tests, and because of this I had the trust of my principal and I had the trust of my colleagues to really experiment and to go for it in the class, because everyone was happy and everyone was having a good time. Everyone wanted to learn. It was easy for me, you know. The kids wanted to do it, and they would beg me for more. You know, they asked me for more meditation. One time we were going to the Science Center, the California Science Center. It was a walking distance from the school, and we had this beautiful day at the Science Center. On the way back, we had to walk through the University of Southern California Rose Garden, and we're walking through the Rose Garden, and my kids look at me and they say, "Yo, Mr. D, can we meditate?" And I said, "Yeah, we can meditate, all right." And we sat down in this huge circle in the Rose Garden, and we started going, looking at each other, getting the beat together, and we started singing the mantra. And as we're doing this, women pushing their strollers with their kids start surrounding us, and all these other people are watching and observing, and my kids are all smiling, singing in unison in this beautiful, beautiful space. And the entire way back home, a 15 to 20 minute walk, 30 of my students sang the mantra, "I am happy, I am good, I am happy," all the way through the streets of LA to all the people. I had William climbed a tree and was at the top of his lungs, was telling the world how happy he was. All the way into our school, they echoed through the halls of their happiness. And that happiness was contagious to me and to the rest of the kids. I used to, you know, during that time I started taking my stereo outside of my classroom and just blasting music at the end of the day and giving salutations to each one of my students. And at the end of the year, I received a pink slip, you know, and that pink slip, it was from Los Angeles Unified School District, and it said, "Thank you very much for your service, but we no longer have money to pay you or 2,000 other brand new teachers, and I'm sorry, you no longer have a job." And with a bunch of sadness in my heart, I packed my things and I left my school. And then the following months, during the next school year, I received a call from my principal, and she said, "Man, Mr. D, there's just something missing. It's like your aura's missing from this school." And with that, I bid you farewell. Waheguru. Change the world through peace and music, love and light.